Well, hello everyone, and this is Jeffrey Davis. This is Radio Entrepreneurs. I'm so pumped. These are like my favorite segments of each week, each month. But before we do, if you're going to like this segment and you want to see more of what's coming up with Phil Sharkey, what I like to call Sheriff Sharkey, you can follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, and we hope on the Warner and the CBS network soon to come. But, I'm going to introduce Phil Sharkey, the president of the Higher Authority. And again, as I said, I like to call him Sheriff Sharkey because during these times, fraud is all over the place. Welcome back.
Thank you, Jeff. Great to be back with you today. Look forward to our interview. And you're right, fraud is surely not taking a COVID break, and it's exploding as well. And I see a lot of companies, unfortunately, sort of turning their head from the background check and not being as invested in, and now you have to be more careful than ever.
Well, especially now that the courts are closed. I mean, why not push the boundaries? Maybe I can slip under the wire. I could use that a little extra spiff to my home, and it's going to be 2-3 years before they convict me anyway.
Yeah, what I call exactly, those cases are just frozen. What I call the bad guys don't take a break, and actually opportunity is key. And I know last time I went on about criminal records and how we go about getting them. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about what do the employers get? Like when they get a criminal record, all the questions I think the audience would have is, what do you do with it? And I want to get into a little bit of ban the box legislation, which I've had big fights with, and there's so many people on the other side and they fight so much for rights. And I know that's what our country's all about. But to me, finding out information, whether it's on Nathan or Chris or yourself, that's who you are. And when you apply for a job to work with me, I review your resume. And you know what? If you have criminal records, that's part of who you are. I'm sorry that it comes out. But if I have 2 applicants and I want to review closely, I think I need to know that information before I turn over the keys to the shop to you.
Well, Chris would say, don't do a background check on me, even though he's pretty clean. Nathan, we're going to find out that he once turned in his homework 5 minutes late.
I think that's the worst he would ever do. Absolutely. Since getting to know him. Absolutely.
Right.
So Jeff, I could talk about, first of all, is ban the box. People go to me, what is that? What's going on? So again, we do a background check for you at Radio Entrepreneurs. We do a criminal check, ban the box. There's 13 states in our fine country that have adopted ban the box legislation. It's basically a legislation that you no longer can ask in the internal interview, the initial interview, Nathan, have you been involved in any criminal records? There used to be an application form, and right on the application it would say, have you been convicted of a misdemeanor or felony? Yes or no. Have you been involved in a crime? Yes or no. That little box, they've taken that off the application.
I'm going to ask you a question, and you might not be able to answer it. Of those 13 states, I wonder how they balance out Democrat versus Republican states.
It's a good thing. Would you like to know the list, Jeff? Really?
Yes. And I'll see if we can score that as we go.
Yeah, let's go right down. We'll go alphabetical for you, Jeff. But we have California, of course, Colorado, our neighbors to the south there, Connecticut. Then we jump all the way to Hawaii, which in fact was the first state to ban the box. We have Illinois, of course. We have Massachusetts, Minnesota, New Jersey, New Mexico, Oregon, Rhode Island, Vermont, and Washington. So that's the big 13. And all joking aside, what's changed is, so those states, when you go to hire someone, when you interview, you have to change your job application. You can't have the criminal record question on there any longer. And you no longer can ask, hey, by the way, is there anything, criminal history-wise that I should be concerned about? And
you could say that, on a rough count, that 9 or 10 of those states may be Democrat versus Republican.
I think so, and not to get, I know political is such a touchy subject, and I'm all for rights. I never infringe on anyone's rights. We never do anything without a signed release and authorization. And I know there's some people who are involved in minor crimes, and they don't want that to hurt them. But I'm sorry, I would want to know if you've been involved.
What's a minor crime? Let's talk about that for employers. Someone might say, I don't think I should be checked. It's a minor crime. But what could be a person's minor crime that I could be hiring?
Yeah, there could be. And of course, as we know right now, the marijuana possession, which years ago was a crime and now is not. There's other crimes in the drug reign where people go like, well, that's not a criminal. That's a person who has a dependency problem. I don't think that's pertinent. My gosh, do I argue that, because I'm sorry, they may have a medical condition, but it's really pertinent. We have a tree company that we do screening for. I think I need to know if the applicant's been on Oxy and has some dependency problems. I'm not infringing on his rights. I think I need to know that before he gets up in the tree and climbs up 30 feet with a saw. It's very pertinent. A lot of people think some minor crimes are regarding, offenses in the car, but sometimes drinking and driving, not sometimes, it's a crime, and it's a different time than the 80s where you could drop the net and half the population would be caught. I think you need to know today that people really need to be aware that drinking and driving is a major crime in our country in the way it's viewed and for the safety factor. So what I think they've done is they've made the hiring process more difficult, because you surely have much more difficulty ascertaining whether someone can be trusted or not. A lot of crimes in the financial realm, they view as minor. If it's someone with some types of theft and those things, to me, that's a decision a person makes.
What if you've spent any time, but you're now, you've paid your dues? Is that something that has to be informed, or is it something you're protected against?
Yeah, if it surfaces in my record, and again, these ban-the-box state like Massachusetts, you can ask in the initial interview. You still can do a criminal check. What happens is you surely make the offer contingent on the background check. So then it goes back to you and that person. So I come back and I do surface some crimes for you and some jail time. And you're right, the applicant goes, Jeff, I was a young man. I was college age. I was dumb. I've changed. As you can see, there's 6 years since any of that has occurred, nothing more recent. So I think I'm no longer that risk. I believe that just like a resume, your criminal history is who you are. So if you do have issues in the past, okay, so you need to overcome them. You need to show me that that is in the past, that you're not a risk any longer. And you need to own it and be who you are, compared to someone else who has no criminal record, and I'm going to allow them to work in an office alone. Or in today's environment, you're going to work out of their house, and I'm going to have to trust them to be where they are, what they are, with my information, to have access to my internal computers. I think it's a slippery slope. I think if we get too far away from allowing criminal record checks to be conducted in the vein of allowing more people to work, you're going to have a lot more problems. And then it's going to come back and say, why didn't you check?
And is let's say I'm an employer, so let's say I'm going to use your services. Is it hard to do this? How much time does it take, and what's a typical range of cost?
Yeah, great question. 2 to 3 days is the turnaround time for the criminal check. It has to be quick because you don't want to lose a good applicant.
Right.
Statewide can take a little longer. Massachusetts now is very quick with the query. It's 1 day. So turnaround time is not a problem at all. And I suggest to the client, it all goes on your decision making. If it's a financial position and you find crimes of a financial nature, I think it's very pertinent for you. And then you can go back to the applicant and say, this is your background check. Can you make me feel more comfortable? I have a lot of clients that don't go back to them. And I think that's where the people get somewhat defensive and say that they're not allowed their chance. But I'll tell you, Jeff, many times when we surface a criminal record, I hate to say this, but many other aspects of the background check turn out wrong. The education usually doesn't check out. The employment isn't what they claimed. I tend to get a lot more to go along with that. Usually not just someone who, oh shucks, had a bad day in a criminal case.
Well, it's pretty tough situation, but I think, a lot of people, job movements, and a lot of people do have a history. And if you're an employer, you're getting somebody into the mix, you're building, culture is number one in building an organization. So you want to be clear what type of person you're getting and how they may act. So, I just think any bit of information that helps you screen people, especially if you have 2 candidates and they're of equal ability, this could be a deciding factor for some companies.
You just nailed it. And again, I know Deval Patrick, when he was governor, was very instrumental in really getting this ban-the-box passed. And I know many people have been harmed by their criminal record passed. Of course, it's their criminal record passed. But I think once you put it into the category of where we're not going to check at all, you're going to open that up to a lot of really bad apples getting through. And the more difficult you make it, the harder it will be. I think if I do have those minor charges, I think I can explain them if I get into the office with you and I can sit down and say, this is what's going to surface on me, Jeff, and you're going to find this out if they're doing a good job on my check. And I think that opens up a level of communication where you would walk away going, oh, this guy's really honest. And he's overcome his past errors.
Well, I really appreciate having you on every week. I think the stories are useful. I think it's critical for every employer to be screening. And one of the biggest problems employers have has been recruiting. People don't know how to recruit. I see this all the time in my clients that I'm working with. But Phil, if somebody wants to use that extra bit of insurance to protect themselves, how would they find you? Sheriff Sharkey, where are you?
Here on the web, hireauth.com, hireauth.com. The office is 508-230-5901. And real quick, Jeff, I'm going to sneak in our superstar liar of the week for you. Real quick one. I'm a big sports fan. And it was George O'Leary, University of Notre Dame. He was the head coach in 2001 for 5 days. Now, why 5 days? Because he claimed to earn a master's degree in education from NYU Stony Brook University. That's two different schools. NYU, Stony Brook's another school, not one school. It's like saying Northeastern and Wheaton, two different schools there. So he claimed a master's degree. Unfortunately, he did not have a master's degree. He didn't even graduate. He attended just at Stony Brook. And then finally, he claimed to have 3 letters of football from the University of New Hampshire. He never played a game. So what happened there, Jeff, great embarrassment. It took 5 days for the university to find out about him. He had to resign in shame, and a big Notre Dame fans. Great embarrassment and cost for someone who, very common in my industry, lied about their educational history.
Wow. Well, you know what? It's an epidemic in this country. It's not unusual for people to run for political office and falsify their backgrounds, make false statements about what they do. Fact checking is a problem, but we still have Phil Sharkey when it comes to organizations. And I want to thank you for being on the show. And yes, you are number one for me. And I look forward to talking to you next week, and also for your highlight of the week.
You bet, Jeff. Thanks so much. Great to talk with you again.
Right. Remind everybody that was Phil Sharkey. And from the Hire Authority, my name is Jeffrey Davis. We'll be back with more stories after this short break.